What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on? We finally got a game, and of course, the Kansas City Chiefs continue their ownage over the Ravens. I don't know where Lamar's running was last year in the AFC Championship game. It would have been nice for us Ravens backers, but the Chiefs take care of business. A little closer, I think, than everyone thought with the final drive. And Lamar misses a couple passes, and then he hits Isaiah, whose toe was on the line and doesn't count, and the game ends. But like, the major difference between the NFL and college, obviously, is somehow these games, even when they don't feel close, can then become close and extremely entertaining. And obviously, the Chiefs, we will dive into the heavy favorites to win the Super Bowl again for the third straight year. I think it's pretty clear they're even better. And we've been talking about it this offseason. My guy Stuckey, who's a big Ravens fan and gambler, has said it the last couple weeks. The Ravens' chance was last year. Now, they'll still be good. Lamar's just a remarkable athlete and a great playmaker. But that offensive line, holy moly. And the kickoff rule was, Belichick, I give him credit. He knows a few things. Had mentioned something, I think, on McAfee, that get ready. These teams are going to blow it through the end zone. The Ravens messed with it a little bit. The Chiefs did not. Butker was blasting that thing into the stands, and I think what sucks is that's going to happen on Friday night, probably all Sunday, and then again on Monday. And we'll dive a little bit into the Friday night game. And of course, it's Fugazi Friday. I got a little something that's happened to me the last couple of days that's driving me nuts. But before we dive into the football game, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners in the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time. How fun did that? If I was a Chiefs fan, wearing my Chiefs shirt right now, kind of am a Chiefs fan because I love Andy Veach, and how do you not like them? They're fun to watch. I've been to many Chiefs games, actually. I worked there my senior year in college. But if you want to go to an NFL game, a college game, a concert, obviously we saw Taylor Swift about 17 times. I don't know if I'd personally attend a Taylor Swift concert, but I don't blame you if you want to go. Take your girlfriend, take your wife, take your daughter, have a good time. Go to any concert, any comedy show. Game Time is so easy to use. I've been using them for years. Cannot recommend them enough. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Chiefs beat the Ravens. At one moment after the first drive, the Ravens scored. Derrick Henry had a nice little touchdown run. You're like, oh, this is kind of fun. Derrick Henry and Lamar in the backfield. I looked on the DraftKings app, and the Chiefs were a money line underdog. I was like, should I jump on this? And about 15, 20 minutes later, I highly regretted that because let's face it, like, I understand the score was close and the game, in theory was close. I see a wide gap between these two teams. Now, I don't, it's not like I'm acting like the Ravens are going to miss the playoffs, but the Chiefs aren't just clearly the best team in the NFL. Their offense is so much more complete now. I think everyone's asking themselves when Xavier Worthy scores that first touchdown on kind of that end around, you go, the Bills really traded with them and let them have this guy? We talked about it earlier in the week, is when you look into Tyreek Hill's rookie season. Now, Mahomes wasn't there. Alex was. But he accounted for 12 touchdowns. And obviously, once they got Tyreek to go with Kelce, it kind of changed their whole operation even before they put Mahomes in there. And then once Mahomes hit the ground running, they started being, an absolute powerhouse. Well, last year, the Chiefs' offense, because their skill guys on the outside were not very good. Diamador Lenore told Richard Sherman a couple weeks ago when they were going to the Super Bowl, he was begging for the defensive coordinator to put him in the slot instead of playing outside because they couldn't threaten you outside the numbers, which was kind of counterintuitive to the way we always thought about the Chiefs. But the moment they traded Tyreek Hill, everything changed. Now you add Worthy, a legit deep threat. I've listened to a lot of fantasy guys hammer this home, and I don't listen. I'm not a huge fantasy guy. Respect that I know a lot of you people play. But I think sometimes when you're deep into the weeds, you can overthink stuff. And everyone's like, Rashee Rice, they gave him extra targets last year because they didn't have other weapons. It's like, guys, did you watch him play? That guy is freaky good. Now, he shouldn't be behind the wheel of a Lamborghini with 7 of his buddies going 900 miles an hour down a freeway. But you get that guy on a football field, like if you just watched him play, whether Tyreek Hill was even on the team or not, he would have been productive. So you add Worthy, a speed threat, with him. They have multiple tight ends. I mean, Travis Kelce didn't even really do anything tonight. They have the best quarterback. Like, I think when you watch tonight, you see the gap between the two quarterbacks. Lamar is one of the most remarkable players you'll ever watch in any sport in your entire life. He is a very, very fun player to watch. But because let's face it, most teams are going to have some weaknesses on their offensive line, and throughout a game, a quarterback is going to scramble. Not everything, especially the way those two guys play. It's not going to be Tom Brady, Peyton Manning getting rid of the ball really quick, or Sean Payton back in the day with Drew Brees. They're going to ad-lib a lot. And when he ad-libs and when Lamar ad-libs, he could control himself of the end of the ad-lib and throw a direct strike. And obviously, he can play just like a game manager. He can throw great deep balls. He can do it all. But that specifically was a huge difference tonight. When Mahomes was scrambling around, it's been a huge difference his entire career. It's what makes him one of the greatest players of all time. He can throw these perfect strikes that lead to first downs, keep the chains moving, and everyone goes on with themselves. Tonight, Lamar had 2 easy touchdowns before the one got called off, and he missed. Because as a couple scouts text me, it's like, why is he panicking so much? And I understand panicking a little bit because the offensive line ahead of you is atrocious and you're running for your life. But once you see the guy open and there's no one around you, you kind of got to gather yourself and make a good pass. And Mahomes can do that. And Lamar, for whatever reason, especially against the Chiefs, consistently does not. Obviously, tonight he ran all over him, which is something that I still can't get over that he didn't do in the AFC Championship game. But you win in this league at the end of the day by making passes. And like, I don't know if the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl again, right? They have the best team right now. Injuries can happen. Football's weird. It's a one-game situation. We saw the Patriots dynasty lose a lot of playoff games. Weird things can happen. But no one's betting against that guy. Why? Because we have complete belief if it was flip-flopped in that situation, he's making the pass. Where I just don't know how you could have that belief, not necessarily in a regular season game. Lamar is an incredible regular season player. But in a playoff game, it just doesn't happen. And for whatever reason, it doesn't happen against the Chiefs. And I just, when you watch Kansas City, their offense, they struggled consistently last year to get to 20 points. But luckily, their defense is awesome. Chris Jones, I think Chris Jones is the new Aaron Donald. He's just an unstoppable force. And he kind of was going like Lawrence Taylor tonight. You know, like Belichick and Parcells have always told stories over the years. Like, yeah, sometimes you just kind of let Lawrence do his thing. And he'd be kind of freelancing back there. Chris Collinsworth was saying it on the broadcast. Chris would be lined up over a guy, and then he'd be like, screw this, and he'd just go back over across from the right guard and right tackle because he knew those guys were the mark, and they couldn't block him. And he was causing havoc all night long. And their linebackers are fast. All their secondary have great ball skills. They tackle well. It's just an elite defense. And when you have an elite defense, your team's going to be solid. And then I give you the best quarterback of all time and one of the greatest coaches of all time. And now you've got added weaponry. Like, I just, if the Chiefs are on, nobody's beating them. It's not even debatable. But luckily, the great part about the NFL, even when you have this great team, the regular season's still fun. Like, their regular season games are fun. I was living in the Bay Area when Kevin Durant was there. A lot of their games weren't that fun during the regular season. It was just boring. It did not matter. Tonight felt like it mattered. Now, are the Chiefs going to try every single week? I don't know. I think they'll try their next game because they're playing the Bengals. Atlanta kind of feels like a classic game. They'll be flat. But this team right now, I mean, they're just on a completely different level. They're well run. They have elite players. The play calling's awesome. Their defense and their defensive play caller are elite. Their special teams, like, yeah, I know this new kickoff rule that, Roger, you all want us to do. Yeah, F you. We're going to boot this thing out to the Chiefaholics' cousin in the front row of the end zone. That's what we're going to do. We're not even going to mess with that. So, big win for the Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, they handle the Ravens. They find a way. They beat them. But now, like, this game for the Ravens, coming off that AFC Championship game, you've had all offseason to think about this thing. And it's just like, I don't know. Something's just missing. Like I said, their chance was last year. Their defense is not going to be as good. Their offensive line clearly isn't as good. And their offensive line coach died. So we could nitpick Lamar, who tonight kept him in the game with running around like he was Walter Payton, which is something he has to do. But I also think when you play like that, like ultimately when Patrick Mahomes scrambles, he's scrambling to throw. And it feels like he keeps his eyes up. Lamar does that half the time, and half the time he's like, fuck it, I'm gone. Which I don't totally blame him because he's such a great athlete and runner in the open field, and he can make guys miss, and he's so fast. But it gets a little chaotic. And luckily, they functioned as a chaotic offense tonight. He hit that big play to Likely, who made like 3 guys miss and scored a touchdown to get him back in the game. But against the best teams in the biggest spots, you cannot win like that. It's impossible. You have to win throwing the ball. And it's hard to trust Lamar in those spots, and it's definitely hard to trust their offensive line. And you lose Mike McDonald. Clearly, the defense is just not as dominant. It just simply is not. And now the Chiefs are better on offense because I'm not judging this Ravens team. Like, I don't like them as much as I did last year. Like, I wouldn't bet on them to be the number 1 seed. But to me, they're still a 9-10 win team lock, right? As long as Lamar's playing 17 games. But, like, I don't take them seriously as a Super Bowl contender. And I don't know, like, you watching the game, like, they'll be in the playoffs. Maybe they'll win a playoff game. Maybe they won't. But people picking them to win the Super Bowl, like, those days feel behind us now, right? Like, that's behind us, like, with this team. And they got good skill guys. Likely looks like a fantastic player. I like Zay Flowers. The Henry fit's a little weird, like, where it does not help them. Like, you can use Pacheco on screen passes. You can use him in the rhythm of the offense. Derrick Henry is a guy, and they're going to have a lot of leads throughout the season in these random regular season games. I've said it before, like, to me, they're starting to feel a little bit like the Houston Rockets with James Harden. And I like Lamar personally more than James Harden. I enjoy watching Lamar play football. You couldn't pay me to watch James Harden play basketball back in the day when he was supposedly, as Daryl Morey said, better than Michael Jordan. But it kind of feels like that. Like, yeah, the regular season, you put up some stats, you're going to have a bunch of wins. Who gives a shit at this point in time? Like, it truly doesn't matter. You know, you're only judged in January, and I just don't take you seriously there. I can't, because, and it's hard to be a Super Bowl contender, one, when I don't trust your quarterback in big spots throwing the ball, and when he's running for his life because the offense sucks, even if he's capable of running for his life, which Lamar Jackson is. So I know the score was, it's not like this was a 20-point blowout, but could you watch that game and think those two teams are actually close, even though the game was close? Because that's not my takeaway. It's the opposite. Like, I feel the gap between Mahomes and Lamar, like, yeah, they both got 2 MVPs. I don't view them even remotely as equals. Like, the gap between wherever the rankings of Mahomes being the top quarterback and wherever Lamar falls, 3, 4, wherever you want to put him, is really, really wide. Like, it's Grand Canyon wide gap. And the other thing is, Sean McVay talked about it this offseason. He took Vrabel's kind of clock management guy with him. Wasting timeouts in the third quarter because you're going to get a delay game penalty is moronic. Take the 5 yards. We have seen this over and over and over in the NFL. In college, it's a little bit different because the clock stops for the first down. But in the NFL, because basically 90% of games are within one score, under 6-7 minutes in the game, timeouts are so crucial. So when you're blowing those in the middle of the third quarter, you can't have any worse game management. It's the worst possible game management you can have. And it's just unacceptable at this point in time. Like, we're not allowed to call timeouts. We will take a 5-yard penalty with however many minutes left in the third quarter to preserve that timeout for an end of the game situation. And they had 1 timeout. Well, actually, they had none because they had to use it, you know, when the Chiefs were on offense. But, like, that's embarrassing. It really is. And we nitpick these coaches and stuff. And listen, it's hard. You're on the sideline. But that's one of those where it should be like a hard and fast rule. We will take the penalty. You should be practicing that in training camp. We cannot blow these timeouts. And I understand it's week 1, so you're working out the kinks, but that seems like a point of emphasis after these last couple of years when it's been well talked about, well reported on. These coaches are just maniacal with that type of stuff. in terms of having people do research, like no timeouts, third quarter. When it comes to a delay of game, let them throw the flag. Which tonight, I thought the refs were being a little flag happy. I mean, early in the game, it's like, guys, just let the game get going. But overall, like, listen, football's weird. Things happen. I mean, we saw Rex Ryan beat the Patriots. There's no guarantees the way the situation, the way the setup of the sport is. You see it like in the NCAA tournament, in any one-off situation. If this was a 7-game series, basketball or baseball, it'd be harder to take everyone else seriously because you're like, the Chiefs are going to win. But that's not the case. But it's pretty clear they're the best team in the league, and they have been the last 2 years as Super Bowl champs, and now they're better. And the Ravens have a legit issue. I mean, the right side of their offensive line looks really bad for NFL standards. And Lamar can just be herky-jerky with some big passes. And that's something that clearly at this point in time, if this was year 1 or 2, like, he has improved a lot. But that's going to be an issue his entire career. And luckily, he's able to make up for it with some great runs, and it's going to win you a lot of regular season games. But in the biggest games against the best teams, especially in January, it's just not and never going to work. NFL Week 1 is here, and a new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Fans have spoken. We want touchdowns. DraftKings heard us and is delivering. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. It's code JOHN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. And get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. The other thing that really stood out, and Belichick said 2 or 3 weeks ago, what he wanted them to do is just move back the kickoff spot, 15 yards, and keep the same kickoff, right, that has been our entire life. He said it's no different than golf. They started hitting it longer. They lengthened the holes. He's like, clearly they don't want to do that, so they tried this. He's like, you wait. When the regular season comes, he's clearly talking to a lot of coaches, they're going to kick the ball out of the end zone. And that's what the Chiefs did all night. Honestly, I was a little surprised the Ravens didn't. I think the crappy part was, because I did enjoy it in August, this play is not really going to happen. And it's going to be interesting what the league office does to kind of push back. Because a lot of these coaches are like, yeah, we'll just take the ball to 30. Who cares? We're not going to risk a 50-yard open field. Maybe a guy takes to the house. Maybe he flips the field position. But any team with a kicker with a leg strong enough to easily boot it out of the end zone, I think it's pretty clear that's going to happen. So as much fun as August was, and I enjoyed it. Like I want to watch the play like anybody, because in theory, it does make a lot of sense having some action on that play. I just don't think we're going to get it. And I think the Chiefs showed us, like, get ready. Like, we ain't going to be alone. So congrats to the Chiefs, 1-0, Ravens 0-1. And yeah, man. So we're off and running. Really quick on the Friday night game, Eagles-Packers, pretty exciting. I wrote down a couple questions for both teams that I think we're going to need to see answered. Obviously, for the Eagles, 2 things really jumped out. Their defense down the stretch wasn't bad. It was atrocious. And really, when you look at the stretch in which they were losing game after game, the Seattle game where Drew Lock led them back with that game-winning touchdown was probably their best defensive effort. Now, granted, Drew Lock didn't really play that good until the last couple drives. They only scored 20 points, that being Seattle. But then the last 4 games, which includes the playoff game, it was 25, 35, 27, and 32. So they add Vic Fangio. I think the big question mark is going to be, can he get those 2 big defensive linemen going? They drafted Jordan Davis and they drafted Jalen Carter really, really high. And obviously Jalen Carter was a rookie, but it looked like he ran out of gas. And obviously Jordan Davis has battled some weight issues because he's a mammoth man. And when you invest such high picks in those guys, you need them to look like, they're hoping Jalen Carter is like the next Chris Jones. And if he is, they're in good shape. Because the easiest way to help out your secondary, who, is a little long in the tooth, And they have some young guys, which you never know. Rookie corners, no matter how talented they are, it's a lot different than training camp, practice, college. Like we'll see once you get to the regular season and playing the Packers wide receivers who are pretty damn good. Easiest way to help them out is with a great defensive line. And 2 years ago, when they made the Super Bowl, their defensive line dominated. And Vic Fangio, when he's had awesome defenses, the 1 year in Chicago when Nagy was the head coach and they had the best defense in the league, they had Akeem Hicks, they had Khalil Mack, they had Leonard Floyd. I mean, they dominated up front. Obviously, those teams with Harbaugh and some of those teams when he was with them at Stanford just dominated up front. So that's what I'm watching. Can he get those young guys rolling? And then the other thing is like Jalen Hurts. Like we can nitpick Lamar or whatever, but he's still like no disputing. He's beaten most teams, right? And that's why he's such a great regular season player. Jalen down the stretch of the season, now whether he's hurt, he's so kind of cloak and dagger about it, which I respect. He's not a big excuse guy. Looked like a shell of himself. He threw 5 picks like the last 4 games of the year. He was not potent. He was not running. Part of what made him a great player was the dual threat. Like ultimately, if Lamar never ran, he'd be kind of average. What makes Lamar, borderline elite guy is this dual threat. At any moment, he could try to chuck it 50 yards down the field or he could take off for 45 yards with his legs. And Jalen just tried, like, I'm just going to throw the ball. And to me, Jalen a couple years ago, especially early on in the season when he was building the MVP momentum, it was like, God, this guy's a great runner. He had like a natural kind of instinct, like a running back, and he throws a great deep ball. And then last year it was all out of sync. So now you bring in Kellen Moore, and this is the thing with the Eagles. They're very dependent on these 2 coordinators being really good. And historically, Vic Fangio has a very good resume. I think Kellen Moore has a pretty good resume too. So if they get those 2 guys going, not even necessarily for this game in Brazil, which is just weird in general, but just big picture. The Eagles' defensive line plays well, and Jalen kind of gets back some of his mojo and doesn't turn over the ball at such rapid rates. They're going to be good. If the defensive line is not getting pressure, like the Eagles are going to have problems. I mean, I really think that. They can get away with it a little bit if Jalen's off just because they have so much talent at wide receiver. But I'm fascinated. I think the Eagles are one of the more fascinating teams in the league. And then when it comes to the Packers, it's just real, right? Because what we saw that last stretch of the season was like, this is Aaron Rodgers reincarnated. That's what the guy looked like. Throwing fucking BBs and darts for touchdowns, scrambling around, arm angles. It was like, yeah, this is what a max quarterback looks like. And, historically in sports in general, we've seen a lot of flash in the pans. The Packers don't believe that. That's why they extended him. They love the guy. They love the player. They've been around him for a long time. But the pressure gets amped up when there's expectations. Last year, I would say like half the people were betting against them. They're like, they're not going to be any good. Now there are people like me thinking they could be like a top 5 team in the NFL. They could be a team, if their defense is good, and we'll get to them in a second, could be like a Super Bowl contender. And the wind blows a little harder at the top of the mountain. So last year they got to fly under the radar. Like you watch Chiefs and the Ravens, no one's flying under the radar. Every game they play moving forward, like they're getting everyone's best shot. The Packers, like people feeling them out, like no one's feeling them out this year. People are coming for them, right? Because everyone's kind of anointed them because they earned it. You win a playoff game, you almost beat the Niners. Everyone's talking about your quarterbacks, your offensive weapons. That's a lot of pressure on a quarterback. That's why becoming a star player is so hard because you have to do it every single year, year after year after year after year. Like you don't just get to like, oh, I just had a shitty year. Like that doesn't really happen with most great quarterbacks, right? So I'm just fascinated to watch Jordan Love. I like him. I'm buying the stock, but like we've all been fooled before. So it's going to be fascinating to watch him in this light. It's going to be a lot of people watching Friday night, Brazil, against a talented Eagles team, but how good that defense is, we'll see. And then to me, I just somehow know a lot of Packers fans in my life. Their defense over the last 15 years with some of their great offense has just been their downfall. And over the Rodgers era, their defense let them down countless times post Super Bowl, right? The Niners shredded them multiple times. And it's just they fired their defensive coordinator again for a reason. They hired Jeff Hafley, who, I don't know, he's never been an NFL defensive coordinator. He's really only been a coordinator at a big-time college for a year, and I'm pretty sure he was the co-coordinator. Now he's really well thought of. Kyle Shanahan really liked him. He coached for him early on in San Francisco. Obviously, Ryan Day in Ohio State. He's an impressive guy. It's why he got the job with Boston College. But they've invested a lot of high picks over the years on this side of the ball. And he's an energetic guy. I've been around him at practice a lot. If he's good and their offense keeps doing what they've been doing, they're a legit serious contender. But if their defense is just kind of what it's historically been, something you can't trust, they'll just kind of be the Packers, what we've seen for 15 years. Sexy team, be in the playoffs, and not really a threat to win at all. So this game is really, really intriguing. These you can't ask for much more. Ravens, Chiefs, Packers, Eagles the first week. I need to tell you about my friends at Mando. This Mando deodorant, the Mount Fuji, I've been using it every day for the last month. I go to the gym in the morning. I'm a sweater. No one wants to smell the rest of the day. Bad body odor, biggest turnoff in America. Well, here's the key. Put a little of this on, you're taken care of. Here's my favorite, though. This invisible cream deodorant I use for my balls. You just put a little pea-size amount on your finger. Boom. I play a lot of golf. Summer in Arizona. It's like 120 degrees. You're sweating. No one wants to stink, especially down there. Boom. They also have these deodorant wipes. You can put them anywhere. Under armpits, down low, on your arms. You want to be smelling good. They will take care of you. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash. I got one in the shower, deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates over 40% off a starter pack. Use code JOHN, JOHN, at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO, shopmando.com. Okay, before we get out of here, Fugazi Friday. Maybe I'm crazy, and this isn't necessarily a Fugazi. This is just something that sometimes when I go to the gym, I go to the sauna, like a lot of people. And depending on the time of the day, I try to go, ideally, if no one's in there, I'll take my headphones, leave my phone outside, and just sit there for 25 minutes, listen to a podcast, and just kind of close my eyes and just sweat. And I never understand if someone else is doing that when I walk in, I don't try to talk to them. I just let them be, even if I don't have headphones on. Like, we just don't communicate. Now, if both you or if there's 5 people in there and no one has headphones in, you might start shooting the shit, talking life, talking politics, usually comes up, their kids, whatever. But if you have headphones in, you usually leave them alone. And I've ran into the same 2 guys like the last 3 or 4 times I've gone there, and they both just start talking to me while I'm laying there with multiple towels over me and earphones in. And it just drives me nuts. I just don't understand it. Like, it's a basic level of respect. Ultimately, I take my headphone out, I end up talking, but I don't want to. And I can't fathom that if you walk in somewhere, and obviously we live in a culture where a lot of people just have headphones on in general. Like, if you're just walking, you're going to a restaurant, like, if you have headphones in, especially if I don't know you, it'd be one thing if I know you. It's like, oh, James, what are you doing? Willie, what's going on? And you start bullshitting. You don't know him. Never really seen him. Know nothing about him. You start talking to him. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm crazy, but I just really like that peace and quiet in that moment where I can be listening to something in my own head and just sweating out my impurities. And these guys were just wearing me out. And then both the guys on separate occasions today, they both came in at the same time. And it was just, I mean, it might as well have been Woodstock 99 of a conversation. Luckily, I only had about 10 minutes left, but I was stuck in there for a while and just had to take my headphones out and get in on the conversation because I had no choice. They were just kind of screaming at me my ideas on different things about, I don't know, it was just, I don't know. I just want to be left alone in the sauna.